We have, along with our immigration problem, an emigration problem. Whilst we're taking in from across the world people who come here to claim benefits, 66% of asylum seekers, it was revealed this week, end up on universal credit. We're also losing the richest, the value creators, those who help us to pay our way in the world. And this is a consequence of what this socialist government has been doing. We're losing famous people who have billions. We're losing millionaires. We may have lost almost 10,000 last year, and we may lose over 15,000 this year. And you hear the answer to that, well, there are 3 million millionaires in the country, so losing 15,000 or 10,000 doesn't matter. But that's utterly and absolutely wrong. Why is it wrong? Well, when you take those 3 million millionaires, most of them will be millionaires in their property, that they will live in London and the southeast, and they will have their money entirely tied up. The people we're losing are worth tens and hundreds of millions. They are the richest and most mobile of the millionaires, and they are going. Now, we've heard that this is essentially a scare story, but the figures from the ONS that have come out this week indicate that it's much more worrying than we thought. Previously, the ONS had said that net we had only lost 14,000 British people. That is, the number of British people who had left the country against the number of British people returning. They've now revised their figures, and it's nearly 100,000 more. It's gone from 17,000 net to 114,000 who the ONS think have left the country. Why does this matter? Well, it comes back to a point that I have kept on making, that there is a maximum level of taxation which people in this country are willing to pay. And it's about 38% of GDP. And when you try and increase rates in a way that goes above this level, you find that people change their behaviours. And there are a number of ways of doing this. Some people will decide to work fewer hours. Anybody who is on the cusp of earning £100,000 a year will not actually want to increase their earnings from between 100,000 to 120,000 because they will have to work harder and they will lose almost all of it in tax. Indeed, as you go from £99,999 to £100,000, that £1 leads to you having an almost infinite rate of tax if you've got children. So people work less, they become less ambitious. That's very straightforward in terms of income tax. The other thing that happens is that people spend less money, that if prices go up, if VAT seems too high, people buy fewer goods, those goods that have VAT attracted to them. Now, in both of those cases, that's quite hard because we all want to earn money, we all have to earn money, and we all need to spend money. But at the margin, it becomes important because you need tax revenues to grow as the economy grows. And the economy will not grow if people aren't working hard and they're not buying goods or they're cutting back on their goods. So it has an economic effect as well as a tax effect. You then move on to the question of capital taxation. Most capital taxation is essentially voluntary. So if you put up capital taxation, people simply don't carry out the transaction. We've seen that with stamp duty, land tax, that property transactions have declined, particularly in advance of the budget, and particularly post the increase in stamp duty that came about earlier in this year. Property transactions took place before the rise came through and have stopped since, and have been delayed because of the budget and fears about what may happen in relation to stamp duty. This also applies to the way people would change their behaviour if a mansion tax came in. They will sell their properties, and the price of high-value properties will collapse, and the mansion tax will therefore raise less because it will be levied on houses of a lower value. So you decrease the market, you encourage people to change their behaviour, to sell their property, to move out of it, and to put their investments in something that is not taxed, potentially to rent, and to put the money perhaps into equities, or even just to put it in the bank. People change their behaviour. But the most damaging form of behaviour is when people simply leave and take their money out, because their income and their investment is what drives the potential for economic growth. If they're living here, they're likely to be investing here. And it's not just millionaires who have come to the end of their careers and are thinking of retiring. It's not just the heads of great families, famous families, who are thinking of leaving and taking their families with them. It's the young. It's the next generation of entrepreneurs who, aged 21 or possibly even 18, decide to go to a foreign university and make their lives abroad so that they will bring their entrepreneurial spirit to a foreign country and not to the United Kingdom. And now we have the figures. And that's really important because it has been dismissed. It's been said to be little more than a scare story. But we know the reality. And it comes back to this point about the natural level of tax. Governments can only go with the grain of the people that they seek to govern. All government is by consent. Historically, you had tax strikes and people simply wouldn't pay the tax. It's why you had standing armies in France, because they raised the tax by force. Now we have a criminal and a civil justice system that makes it very difficult if you're living in a country not to pay tax. You don't have tax strikes, but you have behavioural changes when people feel that they cannot afford it. And these behavioural changes are not carrying out the transactions or moving abroad. That is what we're seeing. And this really matters because it becomes, in the end, the doom loop. People leave, you get less tax, less money's raised, but expenditure's rising, the deficit gets bigger, you raise more tax, more people leave, less tax is raised, the deficit gets bigger, you put up tax rates again. And Labour has never really understood this. They made exactly the same mistake in the 1970s, and people left then. There was a brain drain then, and people came back in 1979 when tax rates came down. So we have an extraordinary conundrum in our migration figures. We have lots of poor people coming in who want to live off the state. People who are coming from poor countries as economic migrants who are getting lots of handouts, free maths teachers, GPs on call, dentists, all sorts of things that the British people aren't actually getting most of the time. Housing in hotels. We're getting that type of person coming here who is going to be a cost to society potentially for years. And at the same time, our wealth creators are leaving. And that means the costs fall not on the super rich, but on the middle income bearers, because the middle income bearers, earners, can't go. They're stuck. They're here. They don't earn enough to make it worth their while to leave, and they are a soft target for the government. And this is a real problem because they are going to be more squeezed to pay for those who aren't working and as those who can earn the most depart. And it's entirely the responsibility of a feckless government. What we should do is start cutting taxes, but to do that we have to cut expenditure first. We are spending too much and we can't afford it. If we were to do that, we might keep some of the income earners and we may be able to grow the economy and achieve success. But I'm not holding my hopes up for next week's budget, which I think will make things worse. Was it the Labour Party's song, "Things can only get worse"? I fear that wasn't their intention, but it turns out to be the reality. As always, thank you for watching.